Hey, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today, we are discussing the 2018 HBO original series that covers Brian Cox, his failing health, and his squabbling family. Bad news about my hymen, yo. It's gone. Today on the show, season 1 of Succession. I am one of your hosts. I am Jay. You can find me on the interwebs as at Jay Suesponte. I've also got with me Aaron.
Hey, this is Aaron at Tenacious Aaron on Twitter, and that's if I even remotely click on it. But very great intro, Tony.
Thank you. We also got Tony today.
Hello, everyone. You can find me on Instagram at tpinquite or on Twitter at tpinquite1.
You can also follow the show at the Show Pod. You can also email us at the show TV podcast at gmail.com. Great reason to follow us on social media is we are having a big announcement in this episode, and that big announcement is we're going on tour. So we are all very, very excited. So if you want news and information, sign up for our newsletter and follow us on Twitter for more information on those show dates. I am looking forward to you, America.
Yes, the cities aren't set in stone, so please reach out if we need to make you one of our stops.
And honestly, can we just be real? America deserves this.
Absolutely, they do, and they're going to get it.
A reward or a punishment?
That's not really the point, but either way.
They deserve it either way.
Well, today we have come together to discuss the first season of Succession. To set this table real quick, this is a series following Brian Cox's Logan Roy, who, for broad strokes, think Rupert Murdoch, the head of Fox and Sky, and particularly Fox News. This is a 90-plus-year-old billionaire who is in charge of a sprawling media empire. In the first episode, he suffers a brain hemorrhage after asking two of his children to modify their arrangement for what happens to his money and his empire once he passes. The rest of the season, we follow the fallout particularly amongst his children. To run through those children, we've got in order of age, we've got the oldest. I believe that is Connor Roy. That's played by Alan Ruck. He doesn't play much of a role in the series. Whoops. I just pulled out my headphones. And I'm back. Sorry, everybody. So we've got Connor Roy, who spends most of the series at his ranch in New Mexico. Then going from there, we've got Kendall Roy. Kendall Roy is, think Donald Trump Jr. He's the heir apparent, the next in line to take over for Logan once he passes on. Then we've got Siobhan, or Shiv. She works in Washington as a political strategist. And then last, we've got Kieran Culkin, the amazing Kieran Culkin, as Romulus Roman Roy, the runt of the family. So that's our family. To kind of kick things off, I wanted to ask you guys, amongst these characters, who is the biggest piece of shit?
If we're going literal, it has to be Roman, I think.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Just for the stuff he literally does, but I think they're all pretty shitty.
Because Roman just shits on lower class people, like economic class. Like he is the biggest piece of shit, just by default.
Just like the torturous, it's a big scene. Obviously, we're a spoiler podcast, but it's one of the earlier episodes. They're playing it might be the first episode right before he has the brain hemorrhage, where they're playing a softball game, and Kendall has to leave for a phone call, so they sub in, I think it looks like a landscaping or a gardener's son, and then Roman just basically tortures them with pressure of he will give him $1 million if this child, I don't know how old he was, 11 or 12, scores a home run. And that's just I don't know, it's like a torturous scene. It's so hard to watch. him just like dangling that, and then like what it'll do to that child.
And it means nothing to him.
Well, he knew he wasn't gonna do it too. I think it's like he set him up, and then after it happens, he basically just like walks up to this kid. He's like, "Oh, I was gonna do it, but you didn't. You didn't score the home run." He tears up the check in front of him, right in front of this little kid. Just like that, pretty much solidifies that character. I think maybe he gets a little more sympathetic as the series goes on, but he still maintains that level, kind of a piece of crap person.
One of my favorite moments of the show was him watching the satellite launch on his phone at the wedding and just watching it explode, and just having all of that crash down on him and seeing his reaction to it. Hilarious.
He just ignored it.
Mm-hmm. Just goes back to the party.
I gotta say, I am a fan of Kieran Culkin. I don't know if I've seen a ton of his stuff, but I love him in Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
He steals the show when he shows up.
Yeah, he nails the role he's given in this series.
He's got such a punchable face, doesn't he?
I just feel like he looks like he coked out Macaulay Culkin.
He was the pressure. He was the catalyst for Macaulay.
Now, as for who's the biggest shit here, I think maybe the easiest answer is Logan Roy, the patriarch, because the entire series, all he's doing is just putting down his family, telling them how worthless they are, and all he does is just manipulate people. But I think I might make a case for Shiv here as being the biggest manipulator. And in the final episode, when she comes clean to her fiance, and I guess at that point actually husband, Tom, that she's been having an affair behind his back the entire time while just repeating the phrase, "we're grown-ups," like that's something he's supposed to understand. Tom himself also, he's got some problems, but watching him just be humiliated like that really made me dislike Shiv a lot more than a lot of these people.
Yeah, I wrote down before the show, least favorite. You said most piece of shit, but if it was least favorite character, Shiv was my least favorite character. I don't know if we want to play the favorite character game like we did on the last pod or not.
Ooh. I'm down.
Sure.
I'll go first. I think it'll be a popular choice. I think Tom's my favorite character on the show.
Yes.
I like the actor. What is it, Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice? What's his name? Like Matthew McFadden or something?
Yeah, it's the D comes before the Y, so I'm not really exactly sure how that's supposed to be good. But I before I actually looked him up, I was like, yeah, Matthew McFadden from Death at a Funeral.
Yeah, so he does a really great American accent, and I think he does like his alternating between like super big goofball and like really serious, like not messing around, kind of like his little flashes he has. I think he does pretty well on those.
See, that's the part of the character that kind of threw me off and made me dislike some of the earlier episodes of this show, because there were just some finer details that felt more ironed out as we went along. And Tom's character felt like one of those, because in his first interactions with cousin Greg, who that was also a show stealer for me, the interactions between Greg and Tom. Just at the beginning, Tom is like, it's almost like he's getting inside Greg's head by saying these outrageous, ridiculous things to him. And then as their relationship changes, he starts to groom Greg to be more of his flacky and his fall guy. So did anybody else get a sense of kind of incongruity between the first couple of episodes and the rest of the show?
Yes.
I think everyone was just more, maybe they got some feedback. Everyone was a lot more cruel, maybe just like actually cruel in the first couple episodes. And maybe they're like, we're going too hard on this. We need to tone it down a smidge. Although it never I don't want to take up time for y'all's favorite characters, but it never feels like watching this show is like almost like this is too dramatic, but being suffocated, like, but someone keeps letting you get only just a very small gasp of air, but they never really let you breathe. Where like I needed the show to be more okay. It's like intense. I'm feeling a pressure, but I needed some releases along the way that just never came. So it kind of like clouded my enjoyment of the show. We're just always intense and stressful.
They never let up.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I love Tom, is because so often he was that comic relief, pressure release. Like basically that entire bachelor party episode, loved it. But
Yeah,
as for now, favorite character, I spent a lot of this show rooting for Kendall, because I felt like Kendall was doing what at least he believed to be the right things in trying to rescue and preserve his father's legacy. His ending, I think, well, we can get to that in a bit. That pretty much turned me off of Kendall, but I did always enjoy Stewie, another guy that, I don't think that he's to be admired, as most definitely not. But was he very entertaining? Hell's yeah. He was. Anytime he was on the screen, you knew that there was something witty coming along, and I eat that shit up.
I'd agree with that. I liked Stewart a lot. He was always true to who he was. Like he wasn't anything more than he.
I just like that he was when he was like, "I can trust you, right? No, but I can trust you on my stuff. No, like just
yeah."
And to segue, I would have to say Stewie was probably the only character that I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. I had very negative feelings about everyone in this show. And I don't know, I agree. Like Tom, like later on, his more goofier persona felt inconsistent with how just over the top aggressive he was at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Because at the beginning, I thought it was setting up for the story of, oh, well, Greg and Tom are like rivals for this one position.
Yeah, I thought Tom was going to play gatekeeper.
Yeah, that dissipates really quickly. I also feel like the whole Lawrence Yee, the very first episode, that whole tension and build, and you just let me into the hen house, all of that did not pay out. Mm-hmm. Like he abstains at the vote, which was really lame. I didn't feel that whole very tense first episode really paid out anything outside of the brain hemorrhage, right? So it felt like that episode just like they dropped so many storylines out of that, just kaput, and never really connected those.
Did we see Lawrence Yee after that vote in the boardroom? And that's in episode 5. It feels like he just went away.
Everything became about the wedding, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like Yee just evaporates after two sequences of play, and then that's it.
Yeah, they left that. They didn't. I mean, I'm sure in the next season they explore more, but they were setting up for more nefarious things in Marsha's past, or like they were setting her up to be kind of like like she was pulling the strings. Mm-hmm. They just never. They kind of dangled it, and then they just kind of just forgot about it. Maybe, I don't know, the wedding event and I guess the summary of the show, yeah, like you said. So he wants to break up the trust and give Marsha like 2 votes of power versus all the other children and himself, or something like more control of the company. They don't want to sign it. That leads to what doesn't lead to his brain hemorrhage. He has a brain hemorrhage, and then like Kendall and Roman become CEO, COO, and they try to basically them and other board members try to force a vote to get him out on a vote of confidence, because obviously mentally behind the scenes Logan is not fully there. And then I'm just trying to summarize it, I guess, since we haven't really summarized it. That leads to a big fallout where Kendall, the family main lawyer, Jack, who's kind of like a mentor to Kendall, and the other board members that voted against him get kicked out of the company. And then it kind of said, I don't want to spoil it. We can talk about the ending, but that's kind of about midway through the season, I think, right there.
Now, real quick, you mentioned about Kendall and Roman becomes CEO and COO. There was a moment where Roman finally settles into his office as COO. He opens up his email, and it's just a constant stream of emails, and then he just immediately, stands up and walks away. At that point, I was like, "Oh man, that is 100% me. If I'm ever put in that position of authority, I'm going to see that stream of emails coming in. I'm going to roll my eyes and I'm going to bail the fuck out." Now, after that, he immediately then just masturbates onto the window in his office. That is not me. I want to be on the record about that. I would not follow through with that.
They go hand in hand. That is a
I mean,
bound event.
Not on the window. You do it somewhere else. Is that what you're saying?
I'd be a little more discreet than straight onto the window and then just, making a half-assed attempt at cleaning it up and just leaving it. Because, God, can you imagine being that cleaning individual who has to clean that awful office?
Is this?
Well, he tried to kind of clean it up, but he didn't do a great job.
Yeah.
I guess, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever, but is there something to, I guess, like Roman's whole character is like he likes to have a lot of sex, but we never really see him actually engaging in sex, and then all of his love interests in the show are always mentioning how they never have sex. So is there some sort of psychological thing we're supposed to infer? Like, I guess he's traumatized from his childhood somehow.
Well, the girl at the end, I don't feel was serious. He brought her just to fuck with Tom at the wedding, right?
But even his other girlfriend, she said, like, we only have sex once every, I feel like it was more than a month, but I don't know. She mentioned that part of it.
Maybe he's a closet homosexual and just never came out of the closet.
Well, his whole thing is kind of like quintessential youngest child, right? He's got to constantly prove himself. And I think that's kind of part of it is he engages in a lot of puffery. Like, it's important to him for you to know how much he fucks. Whether or not he actually does it, that's really irrelevant. But he needs you to know that he does.
Yeah, it makes sense. Another thing that the show kind of never really, well, I mean, there's more than one season, so I don't want to say it never does, but
the first season did not do.
It has moments where you think there's going to be some sort of like a breakthrough, like in people's relationships, but never really feels like it ever comes to fruition. Like at the bachelor party, Roman's big thing is Kendall used to lock him in a dog, or his view is he got locked in a dog cage and he had to eat like literal dog food in order to escape. Like he was treated like an animal. And then other people's point of view is that he actually wanted that. And then the result of that was their father saw him as the weaker son and sent him off to military. So it's like Roman blames Kendall kind of for probably most of his life's probably for being sent to military school. And then Kendall, I guess, thought he was not being mean to him. And then Connor kind of fills him in on the dynamic, like that's why Roman got sent away. So I thought maybe there was going to be some sort of like brotherly moment where Kendall's like not apologizes to Roman, but kind of like acknowledges, he's like, hey, I know things in our childhood were not great, and I feel like maybe I'm halfway responsible. I just feel like there was a lot of similar moments like that with all the siblings, that they were on the verge of having a breakthrough in their relationships, and they just kind of like blue balled it, I guess.
Well, Connor also fills us in that, in his view, Roman was asking to be put in the cage, that he liked it. And
it was chocolate cake, not dog food.
I think both of you are older siblings, and I'm a younger sibling. And, I can definitely remember times, even outside of my own family, where I kind of had this complex where I was like, I want to be bullied or, somehow mistreated, because it's almost like if they're not bullying you, then you don't even matter.
They're not paying attention to you. Like you'll
Yeah.
take any kind of attention almost.
Like I don't think I've ever really told anyone this, and I'm comfortable telling the story here because I know no one listens to this show. But on my first day of seventh grade, I actually asked some eighth graders to take me down to the bathroom and give me a swirly because I thought that would somehow like make a name for myself. And they take me down. We all go down to the bathroom and go into the stall. And at that point, the reality kind of sets in that they're going to have to actually like lift me and put my head in. And at that point, nobody wanted to do it, and we all just left.
It's kind of a good ending for that story, though.
Yeah. So I guess that's the long way to say, I guess I very much understood, or maybe I bit a little bit too hard on the concept of, oh, you know what, Roman, at least to some degree, asked for it. And now he's trying to maybe not even intentionally twist it, but his memory is twisting it to where, oh, I'm actually the victim. And you somehow owe me something out of this, when in reality he was a willing participant.
Yeah, I think the truth's in the middle. I think it's like you said at the beginning. I think Kendall, we're supposed to be, if there's one character we would root for, I think he's framed as the one to root for. Because he's not really much better than the other siblings, but he does at least seem to be trying to do the right thing. Maybe his motives aren't pure, but his end result is kind of like an ethical end result in most cases.
Were you guys rooting for him to reconcile with his wife?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I knew. I guess one of the parts of his character is he was a addict previously, recovering addict from, I guess, cocaine and other drugs, hard drugs. But I felt like, I was kind of building towards him, I guess, turning a corner in his life. So I was rooting for it to happen.
I struggled because I didn't like Kendall from the get-go. Like, first episode, the whole persona that he put on, it felt very much like a little boy in an adult's jacket, trying to do the things that dad does. And I know that that's kind of the persona, but it was so off-putting to me, just the whole personage of Kendall, that I just wasn't ever rooting for him. And so like his stuff with his wife, it just came off as cringe for me. Because like, whenever he's like thinking they're getting back together and she's like, yeah, I contacted a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
It just was uncomfortable.
Yeah, she's very clear with him throughout that she wants the divorce. She's pursuing the divorce. There is a scene where they do momentarily, you could say, reconcile and have sex, but even during that, she's telling him very directly, this doesn't mean we're getting back together. So yeah, I agree with that part of it, that I cringed for him in those interactions with his wife. Now, as for his children, like, being a parent myself has made me so freaking soft, because for the first 8-9 episodes of the show, all I wanted was for Kendall to reconcile with his kids and have a relationship with them and be a good father to them. But then his relapse back into just, addiction and taking anything that he can get his hands on. Man, I really pitied him and was hoping for some kind of redemption. And then wham, car into the creek. Am I right?
Yeah.
The one of the few things that I did enjoy about the show, the kind of like, I don't know, foreshadowing where he was like telling Greg at the bachelor party, give me ketamine, give me ketamine, give me ketamine. And then whenever he goes to the wedding, he says he wants some white powder. The guy gets ketamine and he wanted coke. And that ends up being kind of the cause of the cascading evening.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I did not. I guess we came to the end of the shit of this first season, but man, I hated that part, that car crash part. Like, I just feel like there was so many other options, but I guess that's kind of the point of the show.
Right. So Kendall, who we've seen drinking at the very least and drinking heavily, he asks Stewie for cocaine. Stewie obviously has some, but won't give it to him. because he can kind of see what's going to happen. So Kendall and a waiter who's been fired and then non-disclosure agreemented by the family then drive off to go get some cocaine. Kendall's driving, drives into the creek. Kendall comes out, waiter doesn't, and Kendall just walks away.
But to be fair to Kendall, the only thing I will say is that the kid pulled the steering wheel to dodge an animal.
And to be fair, he dove in like several times trying to, like, it was pitch black. And he did go back under like 2 or 3 times.
But apparently his phone made it, so he should have called 911.
And he avoids a car. Like, I like logical things too much. And like, I get the whole thing where, like, okay, he was driving and he was probably under the influence of narcotics. But I mean, like, the true story is that there was a deer, and yeah, the kid, this young waiter guy, saw the deer. Kendall was trying to shift into gear, is a manual transmission, and the kid like yanks the steering wheel, causing him to fly off the road into the thing. And he tried to. So there'll be some minor legal implications, but like, I don't understand why. I mean, I guess you're not thinking logically in a situation like that. I just think he would have been like, okay, this was actually an accident, and tried to like help the kid.
But I think at the point where he finds someone else who can call the emergency services, the fact that he doesn't, then you've got some liability definitely there.
Yeah, I just don't know why he wouldn't. There's a car that drives by maybe a few minutes later.
He doesn't to protect his own name.
Yeah.
That's all it is. He's too famous for this. He's straight up Ted Kennedy's and just
yeah.
Now,
he does.
After that, we get a scene where he goes back to the wedding party, to the reception, and briefly dances with his wife and his kids to Whitney Houston's "I Want to Dance with Somebody." And I was curious to hear your guys' reaction to that, because I was kind of unsure what to feel watching that.
It's a little bit of a sadistic kind of like, is he a sociopath to be able to just like put that away and act normal? But also he just had a near-death experience himself. And I figure that probably the value of his family, his children, his ex-wife was at an all-time high. So that was very comforting probably for him. So it's very selfish, right? It's probably sociopathic and selfish because he's just trying to placate himself to make himself feel better about what just happened.
I think we see that he's conflicted. Like, I think he pauses before he does it, and then I feel like in the middle of the song he stops dancing, and we see that he's like, I don't know, yeah, I guess it's a tough position he put himself in. It's like, obviously he already ran away. He's already committed to not saying he was around anywhere, so I guess he almost had to do it to not seem guilty.
Now, a lot of the show centers around corporate intrigue about, who has shares, who has votes on the board, who controls the company. And while I am a legal professional, I am proud to say that I got a C in business organizations. So I wanted to throw to my own corporate counsel for any kind of insights on whether or not that aspect of the show held up to reality.
As far as I can tell, yes. The only thing that didn't make sense is when they were talking about effective control of the company still being with the family and being at 37%. I assumed that there must be voting blocks that vote with the family or something like that, because, I mean, if you only need 51%, 37 doesn't get you there. So, but again, outside of that one statement that was made, nothing else seemed out of what would be plausible. So.
Now, something implausible for me, and maybe you guys can correct me here, was really Stewie's whole financial sides, where early on in the episode, it comes out that Logan Roy has taken on an enormous debt to an unnamed bank that he did decades ago to save the company. And basically now that debt is coming due because the stock price is going below a certain point. And Stewie comes in as the angel investor, just with a check for $4 billion. So, I mean, I guess I'm not so naive as to think that Stewie himself wrote that check. He's obviously, attached to a hedge fund or some sort of larger financial organization. But it just seemed a little convenient storytelling wise that they need this amount of money and Kendall just knows a guy.
Yeah, so, and it was attached to a competitor, just happened to be attached to a competitor's LLC show company.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, it seemed a bit too convenient.
And there's almost no consequences.
Well, Stewie and the competitor are now owners, stakeholders in the company.
Yeah, they don't do crap. Everyone freaking chickens out when it comes time to.
Also true.
That's the part that bothered me, or just I didn't understand too. I guess I'm trying to be too logical. Just like they literally had the votes, but everyone's like, and they're all like financially invested in this company, and they're all too scared of this dude sitting in the same room with them to like. They had the votes by like it ended up being a 4-4 stalemate, but they had at least 6 or 7 votes. But Logan like basically breaks the law and leaves himself in the room during the voting process, and everyone knows they had the votes, but they still chicken out. Like I don't get that part.
It probably wasn't the law. It probably was the bylaws of the company that's what had to happen. But and then that would be, since you're breaking the bylaws, it would not be a legal vote. But so in that way, it'd be breaking the law. But at the same time, I feel like this is where the frustration for me with the show got in, is that like why didn't Stewie, if Stewie's wanting to take over the company and later on it's Stewie and Kendall and this other guy who are now taking over the company in the same fashion that they were taking over the company just a few episodes earlier, why didn't Stewie vote yes? It doesn't make any sense, right?
The only thing I can think of is lack of confidence in Kendall as the leader to take them wherever it is that Stewie and the competitor want to go. But is that better than leaving Logan Roy in charge? I don't know.
If he's weak, can't you manipulate him?
Yeah, I mean, if Stewie and Kendall go as far back as they say, then yeah, that's a good point.
So to me, that this is where like there were frustrating aspects of the show that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like Kendall's relapse, he works really hard not to relapse, but then he does because a story comes out saying that he relapsed. Well, might as well do drugs.
Yeah, and even in that moment where he goes up to the bar and he initially even is kind of doing it the right way, asking for non-alcoholic beer and then settling for sparkling water. And then just at the mention of his brother, he's like, you know what? I'm going to get fucked up. And in the sense that I've had personal relationships with addicts who would 100% act that way, then like, yeah, that is realistic and probably authentic. But does it make a good show? Does it make good drama? No, the moment didn't work for me.
Christy watched a little bit over my shoulder, and she said multiple times that this felt like there were real things, like incompetent people in charge of things. Felt very, very real. But I also feel like that's what I don't want to watch real. I want to watch fantastical.
That just reminded me of another storyline that they just kind of like dropped, is like the therapy storyline. I know it was just for like a photo op, but there's a point in the show where the family's fractured. Like Logan just fired Kendall and half the board, and the optics for the company are really bad, so they're trying to improve the optics and get the stock price back up, so they have like a fake, well, I mean, the therapist is real, but they're going to have this sit down at Connor's New Mexico ranch. And then they kind of halfway start it, and there's like progress because you can see how the dynamic is. And then all of a sudden the therapist just jumps into the pool and breaks out his teeth, and then, well, that's just done. That's over. There was nothing about it.
The stock was fine, apparently. Like, right? Like they didn't actually resolve anything nor get their photo op or their interview, but the reason for the corporate therapy just evaporated.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, it introduced a thing to just not solve anything, really. Like, we got to see that, yeah, his kids don't trust him. Logan's children don't trust him, Shiv and Connor and Kendall and Roman. But then it's just like, oh, well, we already knew all that. Like, we didn't learn anything new from that whole storyline. I've got to ask. I don't want to tear down the show if it was just me, but like, when y'all watched it, were there scenes that were just way, way, way too dark? Like, literally, you couldn't see what was going on?
Well, let's tear down the show because it's just you, Tony.
What do you mean? Like,
like physically, like there was just shots of people in the dark, but it was like they weren't illuminated. Like, it was literally just like darkness on the screen.
The only ones I can remember were during the what's it called, the bachelor party sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some of those sequences were really, really dark.
I feel like the very first sequence, it's like Kendall waking up. It's like literally pitch black. I had to turn off all the lights in my room and close my door to see anything. And when he's crawling out of the lake after the car crash, I'm like, it was just super. There was a lot of times, and like half the conversations are in dimly lit areas, but it's not like a stylistically dimly lit. It's just like literally hard to see people, I feel like. Or when I watched it was, but I don't know if that was just the way ITV or where I was watching it. I was just trying to see if that's how it was for y'all.
No, I didn't have it as much, no. But I did have some points that were dark. I do want to ask this question because, again, I find comedy to be very fascinating. Jay made a statement earlier on that this show totes the line between drama and comedy. I struggled to find comedy in most of this show. Like, and maybe because I didn't like people, the things that were supposed to be funny came off as arrogant or conceited or things like that. But like Tom, like him getting snowballed, which I think is the term he couldn't think of at the party. It wasn't funny to me. I just felt bad for him, but that made me angry because he was such a shitty guy that I didn't want to feel bad for him. You know, same with Kendall. Like, when he's going down into the dumps and everything bad is happening, I'm like, yeah, but you're kind of shitty. You know, so you're going through all this shitty stuff because you're also kind of shitty. Like, yeah, your dad didn't retire when you wanted him to, but he didn't have to. So I don't know. To me, I just didn't like Kendall. I think the one time I liked Kendall was whenever he was getting like fucked up with the meth heads. Like, he was somewhat funny there because he didn't give a shit.
Like, but he was finally honest.
Yeah, like whenever he's drinking the beers and he's like at the house, he's like, "We're here for therapy." Like, that sequence, I actually liked him because it felt real. But then the next episode, he's like, "I'm back," you know, and I'm like, like, maybe go do something different, get away from your family. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, I guess it just wasn't my type of. If it was dark comedy, it wasn't my type of dark comedy. Like, when I think about it, I think of like Pulp Fiction when they blow that dude's brains out in the back of the car. Like, that's like dark comedy where it's like you don't just like laugh out loud, but it's like an over the top dark situation that
the blowing up of the satellite was the most dark comedy moment in the show because it was. I agree with Jay. Like, it was a funny reaction. Like, he just kind of like doesn't react, washes his hands, but just fun way acts like it's on silent, you know.
How about when in the bachelor party when they're all coming out at the end and each one of them asked Tom how his own cum tasted?
Yeah, I liked that. That part was funny.
That was a good bit.
Like, but I heard you swallowed your own load.
I wanted to share with you guys the very first sentence of the Wikipedia page for this series says, "Succession is an American satirical comedy drama television series created by Jesse Armstrong." Satirical comedy drama. And Jesse Armstrong in there, I think I mentioned last time around, he is one of the creators and writers behind my very favorite show in the world, Peep Show, which I think is amazingly hilarious, but it's British. So if these characters have British accents, does that change anything for you, do you think?
I think it could. I think also, though, because I've thought a lot about this based off previous conversations. In Peep Show, you get, even though, like, I feel like Jesse Armstrong's, it's cringe comedy that is his forte, because Peep Show is very cringy. But there's always a payout. There's an actual joke or laugh. The problem I had with the cringe in Succession is that there never was an actual, like, payout or joke or laugh. Like, it didn't feel like it ever gave me, like as Tony was saying, it never let up. Like, the cringe just kept on going and going and going and going. So I don't know. If they're British, does it seem less cringy? I mean, maybe. I think that. Sorry.
You asked who the joke is on. Maybe is the joke on us as America, because the subtext here is that in this time when wealth is concentrating in a few individuals and families, our world is increasingly run by these people. So is the joke on us?
Maybe. I mean, but it's not a funny joke. I guess if it's just supposed to be social commentary, fair enough. But I don't know. Like, there's just so many parts of it that I was just like, who am I supposed to root for? At least, like, you know, in a typical anti-hero story like Breaking Bad, I'm rooting against the American system and for Walter White because he's gotten screwed. He's, you know, his family is not able to take advantage of all the stuff. And so it feels like there's kind of like you're getting your just desserts system. Here, it doesn't feel that way because there's shitty wealthy people who take advantage of the system, and then we get shit on, and they still get away with it. Like, Christy called me out because I was bitching about the show, and I was complaining about all the different stuff that was happening. She's like, well, you always say that the best television has the worst people. Why doesn't it apply here? And I said, oh, that's a good question. Why doesn't my eternal maxim apply here? And I think part of it is because back-to-back Siesta Keys, like in this, like, wealthy people, maybe it was a little heavy dose, but I do think that I have a much lesser, and maybe it is the times that we're in with, you know, billionaires going to space with their, you know, penis rockets, but I have a lot less, like, mercy, grace, care for the wealthy. Whereas, like, if these were all poor people doing this kind of shit to each other, I'd probably be laughing my ass off, like Trailer Park Boys, right? So I don't know. It's this raises a weird, an interesting aspect of, for me at least, you know, how I see different characters within our society. So I don't know. It's really racked my brain quite a bit.
Well, did you two happen to catch who the two very prominent names on the executive producer credit, especially during the opening sequence?
Yeah, the first episode, Will Ferrell and Adam McKay.
Yeah, like that was one of the first things that caught my eye. And because when I first went to watch the show, I was assuming it was just going to be straight up drama, you know, prestige television drama kind of shit. Because this show won the Golden Globe, it won the Emmy, it won acting awards for Brian Cox in particular, all in drama categories. So I assumed it'd be a drama, it wouldn't be funny. And then you see Will Ferrell and Adam McKay up there, and you think, oh, okay, you have my attention.
Well, Adam McKay does serious movies too, right? Well, they're usually comedic. Like The Big Short had some comedic elements, but that's like a serious movie, kind of.
Right. And Vice as well. Both of those, you know, topical movies, but with a biting humor. I don't know if you guys saw Vice, but I thought Vice was hilarious.
I have not seen that.
I can't remember.
If this was satirical, I did not catch. I mean, I guess they have a Bernie Sanders character, and they have like their own news network is the Fox News, I guess, in this world. So I guess in that way, I see the satire. But like, to me, it felt more like this show was trying to be the first few seasons of House of Cards, except this is business instead of politics. Like, is the tone I felt. I didn't feel any like satirical, and like there was comedic relief every once in a while, but not enough for me to feel like that was the aim of the show.
it felt to me like someone was trying to create a Sopranos level show. Like it felt like that was the aim, but like because like the music and some of the like transitions and stuff like that, they felt very ominous or big. But I felt like the acting and the cast and the story ultimately didn't rise to that level. And I felt like they it felt like a smaller show than what it was slated for. Like I didn't feel like I was watching an HBO show. That's one thing I will say.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think Kendall, the actor. I'm sorry, apologize to him for not knowing his name, but I think he's in The Big Short, and I feel like he was like almost even he was like a better version of this character in The Big Short. He's basically like the guy that's like, I just want you to tell me how you're gonna fuck me, or like don't fuck me. Like he's like that. He's like almost the same character, but like way more likable in that movie than like if this character was this character. I think the show would be way better. But
well, like, did you like whenever he was like, can we like whenever he was talking to the people who had made the bad deal with at the beginning, and he's like, can we start negotiating now? To me, I took that as like a little kid saying like, well, like I know my dad negotiates stuff. Can we negotiate about this?
Mm-hmm.
Like without knowing how business actually works, or
Yeah.
things like that. And to me, that's where it just was a big turnoff. I also will say Greg, like I couldn't tell if they were like, I guess he's supposed to start off as a doofus, but then slowly becomes somewhat conniving. He's always in the exact right position for himself, like to find out a little bit of information or something. But he felt like an unbelievable character to some degree, right?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'm glad you brought that up because exactly, it feels like he's the one being set up to have the biggest character arc in. He's going to have the most change happen to him, so we have to start with him, vomiting out of the eyeballs of a theme park, bear.
I did laugh at that, and then him being like, "Someone broke into my car and smoked marijuana, and I got fired."
But I think the last time, or one of the last times that we see Greg in this season, is on the night of the wedding when he basically tries to extort Kendall into a better job by saying, "Hey, I'm the guy who took care of the crew stuff that you don't even know about. I saved evidence, so you better do right by me." And in my opinion, he didn't sell it. That if I were Kendall, I might have just punched him and been like, "Who the fuck do you think you are? We've got bigger things going on."
Yeah,
And
you're not important right now.
that's what I was expecting. But instead, Kendall just kind of walks away and is just like, "Ha ha ha, Greg, nice move there. Can't believe you come so far." It's like, no.
Welcome to the family. Backstabbing.
Yeah, that just it didn't work for me.
Yeah, the Bernie Sanders character didn't. I was like, I don't know. They were just like he. If you have a Bernie Sanders character, do you think he is just okay with making a deal with the devil? Because that's really what it all boiled down to. Like they hate each other, they're enemies, they're mortal enemies, wrong for America. Oh, we made a deal, and now everything's okay.
It was way too on the nose for me.
Yeah, it felt like it just feels like they don't know how to deal with some of the stuff that they came up with, so they just write it off.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So, have a great line where he's like, "I'm in a knife fight here, but I'm holding a floppy dildo made of American cheese."
That was a good line.
Cracked me up.
I did like the actor who they chose for that character.
Mm-hmm. He reminded me of Anthony Bourdain. Like I don't know if it's like the look, the way he spoke or something.
Yeah, a little bit. Speaking of which, Kendall, the actor was Jeremy Strong. Now, let's say, especially in the voice, let's say we just replace Jeremy Strong with Adam Scott of Parks and Rec fame. Like
the entire show becomes way funnier.
Like I think it's the wackiness gets dialed up by quite a lot, but just the entire show, I was getting really, really strong Adam Scott vibes out of Kendall.
I feel like it would have been a better show if it was Adam Scott. I feel like I would have actually laughed. It would have been a comedy. There would have been an actual laugh. Because Kendall doesn't sell it, it doesn't come across very good. So I think that Kendall Scott could have saved Kendall Scott. Adam Scott could have saved it.
Yeah.
But if we go too wacky, then we have the story of a wealthy family and the one son who tried to keep them all together. You know, we've got one daughter, three sons, patriarch. You know, the mother is the most manipulative of them all. You know, you got Arrested Development.
Yes, I see some of the framework, and even then, Michael is just as bad as everyone else is in that show. So, no difference there. But again, that's why to me, stories about wealthy families not super interesting, right?
Yeah, we got three really big Schitt's Creek fans on this show, right?
No, definitely not. Not a big fan of Schitt's
I have
Creek.
not seen that one yet.
But I've heard good things. I've heard people rave and rave and rant and rave about it. So
now, real quick, I want to go back to the visual style of this show. Did either of you get a little bit of whiplash, especially in the first couple episodes, where they kept doing kind of like a handheld camera move where they would zoom in real quick on somebody's face for a reaction or for a line, and they just did it too often? Was I the only one here, or did anybody else
I
notice
don't specifically remember it, but I can kind of.
I feel like I caught it in. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Aaron.
No, you're good.
I feel like I caught it when there was like a big room. I feel like they would
Mhm.
tight zoom on someone and then tight zoom out and sweep the camera real quick and then tight zoom in on the
Exactly.
next area, like around the room, basically.
They seem to dial it back a little bit in the later episodes, but in the beginning, it really kind of it added to my confusion about what exactly is this show.
It's
Yeah.
hard to pin down.
I don't think they knew at the beginning. I think
Mhm.
that they had a pilot, they got it out there, and then the pilot they were like, we'll just kind of incorporate some of this stuff, and they kept on going. So
Mhm.
I feel like that the pilot was made and then the rest of the show was written afterwards. And it might be because of how Tony said that maybe people reacted to, I like it, but it's a little too cruel or something like that.
I think I wish maybe just like a very slight change to the show is if, like, Logan Roy is obviously made to be an unlikable, like, a-hole towards his own children.
Mhm.
And I feel like maybe if they all were their own shitty people still, but they all disliked their dad, but they, at the same time, they wanted it for themselves. So they didn't want their other siblings to get ahead, but they were still all banded together against him, kind of, you know? Like, maybe they didn't, like, team up against him, but they're, like, all on the same side, except still out for themselves. I think that would be better than what we have. Like, there's just a lot of characters that just are way too scared of him, even though they hate him. But maybe that's how family works. I don't know. I think that small change would have made it better. Just like they keep backstabbing each other because they want what they want, but they all have the same like dislike of their own father. I think that would have been better.
There didn't seem to be a lot of continuity among what the children wanted. Like Roman, why didn't he vote with? He worked the entire time with his brother to get everything set up, and then he doesn't vote. Like that again, just felt inconsistent.
Well, he couldn't look at his father in the eye and dethrone him. He couldn't, he couldn't kill his own father because he's a coward, I think is what we're supposed to take away from that. But was that moment effective? That's a different question.
I think it was effective me thinking he's a coward for sure. It just felt like I don't know. It just felt like I was like, why all this build up for nothing?
I think what I didn't like how how you mentioned Greg is always in the right spot at the right time just to get what he needs almost. It's like Kendall was always fucking shit up. Like he never got a win. Like everything he did screwed himself
Everything
over.
backfired.
Like literally everything. I mean, I get like a few times, but just like literally everything he does like backfires against him. He talks to the uncle who hates his dad's uncle's like, "What? You're gonna betray your own dad? Oh, f that." He calls the girl's like daughter, and all of a sudden she's on the board, which he got that vote. But just like literally every choice he makes, they never give him a win, and they never let Logan lose. Like he never loses; he always wins. In the first season, at least. I don't know how the other seasons go. I wish there was some back and forth where like maybe the power shifted a few times or something.
Yeah, like George Washington, win a couple of battles except for the last one.
Yeah, just something. I mean, maybe we would have even rooted for Logan if he got ousted from his company, and then he made a full mental recovery and was kind of trying to like scrap his way backdoor dealings to get back control or something. Like,
I was hoping that Kendall was going to go off and start his own competing agency and with those girls, which that whole sequence was really fucked. But that was another thing I lost respect for Kendall for, is whenever they're like, you're basically Hitler, we don't want to do business with Hitler. And his response is to spread the rumor that they're cokeheads and that they're injecting their seed money into their arms. Like, that's vindictive, right? That's destroy them. They didn't want to do business with me, so hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the worst part of American capitalism.
I actually liked that for Kendall, but they didn't hold it. Like, it was like, finally Kendall is going to be what his dad always wanted him to be, but against his own dad. And like, I thought, like, this is like the turning point. Like, maybe I thought this is what they were headed towards the whole time. But then, like, right after that, he's still kind of like really wishy-washy. He doesn't want to make those hard choices again.
Yeah. Now, one of the sources of the tension for this whole season, and one of the biggest reasons why Kendall keeps trying to maneuver against his father, is that Logan wants to buy a package of local TV stations. And the whole time Kendall is making the argument, no, you're looking backwards. We need to look forwards in terms of our business and the technology and such. And I kept waiting for Logan's wider plan to be revealed, because that seems to be usually what happens in this "I'm the older guy, I know better, just trust me" storylines. But I think that's another storyline that just wasn't paid off. We were left hanging as to whether or not Logan actually had a broader strategy or whether Kendall was right.
Yeah, literally everyone thought that was a bad idea too. So I don't.
Well, also Jerry feels like an inconsistent character, right? Like, she's telling everyone exactly what they want to hear.
She's a lawyer, though, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, she had a fiduciary duty to someone.
Yeah.
So she can't do that.
I think Jack may be the only stand-up character in this whole show.
Do you mean Frank?
Frank?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Frank. Sorry.
No, I caught that earlier, and I thought I might have run, but no, yeah, the dude with the bad haircut, who's the confidant, Frank.
But he leaked to the reporters, right? Because Kendall went to speak with him after he was told not to, and reporters came snooping about the purchase. So Frank's not a complete innocent person. I will say this: I also laughed whenever he was like, "Is there a spot for an old man in this deal?" And he's like, "That's too soon."
Yeah. He did a 182. It's like he was started off as like, the confident, like loyal and like principled. Like, he gets fired and he's like, "Listen, I was fired. I'm out. I'm done with this. Like, I'll help you." Kind of
Fuck
like as
these guys.
advisor.
I got fired.
And then like as soon as he gets like he just 180s it and comes back to work as like his old job or whatever. He doesn't care anymore, really. He's like, they kind of weakened him as a character, but at least I feel like he's mostly honest.
Yeah,
I did Jack again, and I said Frank. I don't know.
It feels like this show was taped together a little bit. Maybe the second season, since I do think they find their footing and kind of get an idea of what they're trying to do in the last 3 episodes or so. But I feel like, and we've talked about the ending. I feel like the ending was just very disappointing. Mm-hmm. Like, it just feels like it's setting up an affluenza type ending. Have to have daddy save you, rich boy, for your consequences.
Now, I did mention that this show had won awards, at least the big ones, the Emmy for Best Drama and the Emmy to Brian Cox for Best, I think, Supporting Actor. Now, those were for the second season, not the first. And the Rotten Tomatoes score goes up pretty dramatically, season 1 to season 2. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely going to watch season 2. And I actually had to really stop myself from going on and watching before we recorded this episode, just because I didn't want to taint anything. But I myself, I'm very much looking forward to season 2 and 3 coming out in just a couple months, I think.
Okay, I was going to ask if it was continuing or if it was. And I saw it had a second season, but I didn't know if it was still in development or not. Like,
yeah, from what I've
seasons.
read, season 3 is coming in the next couple months, and then they've already been renewed for season 4, which they believe is going to be the last one.
I see. Well, yeah, hopefully, like Aaron said, that they kind of make maybe more of a concrete decision on what kind of show it wants to be, and that'll give it stability.
Because I think I want to see the continuing development of the Kendall storyline between him and his father and him and his family. Connor running for president, I think, is I'm afraid that that's going to be a too thinly veiled allegory for Donald Trump. Just as somebody who's like, hey, I guess I might run for president, even though I've got no qualifications to do so. I kind of fear for that. And the whole storyline with Shiv and the candidate and Nate, I'd really love to just leave that behind and honestly just get more Tom.
Yeah, Tom's the man. He did have a satisfying confrontation with Nate where he just kind of went alpha male against Nate, and I like that part a lot.
I did enjoy that too.
My family bought the wine, so I very much like you to not finish that and just in fact pour it back in the bottle. Pour it back in the bottle.
Great power move.
I love that he's just like pouring. He's like, don't make a fucking mess. Pour it. He just like lets him walk on. I don't know. Tom's the bomb.
So are we ready to score? And what is our special scoring modifier this time?
I'm glad you asked, Aaron. This week, it's going to harken back to one of my favorite scenes of this show, which is it's around episode probably 4 or 5 when Tom has taken Greg somewhat under his wing and has decided to teach Greg how to be rich. And they go to a very opulent restaurant and they eat a particular bird. And Tom tells Greg that it's actually illegal to eat this bird, and that the proper way to eat this bird is you actually have to put a napkin over your head. The legend goes to save you from the embarrassment of eating this beautiful songbird. Now, quick question, guys. Did anybody else look this up? And if you didn't, okay. Is this real? Did Tom make this up or not?
I believe that it probably is real.
Yeah, I believe it's real.
Yeah, 100%. This is a real thing. And the napkin over the head and everything, it's real. It's called an ortolan. It is illegal in some places, especially Europe, to eat. And people really do cover their heads when they're doing it. Because when they did that, I was 100% convinced that this was Tom getting one over on Greg and just trying to humiliate him in front of other rich people. But turns out he wasn't. So
people just fucked up.
On a scale of 0 to 10 ortolan birds, let's start with Tony. Give us what was your impression before we started recording, and what's your impression now?
Yeah, so I guess to avoid maybe harsh influence or to give a baseline, we did write down our thoughts before the show to compare. Mine didn't change. I'll do 6. Is it Orlan or Ortolan? Orlan birds out of 10. I think the production values were great. I mean, I would not be surprised to see how expensive each episode cost for the sets and the locations they filmed at. So I think it was a good looking show. I think there was maybe not all around, but there were some amazing actors in it. So that pushes it above average for me, but I was not a huge fan. So it's going to be a 6 for me. And then that was before and after the podcast.
Wow. No change from Tony. For me, I wrote down 7.5 of this show. And I think after talking about it with you guys, I think we've identified probably a lot more of the problems than what I really liked about this show. So I think I'm going to come down half a point and rest at an even 7 on this show, because I still enjoyed it a lot. It made me laugh a lot. I thought it created good tension in the places where it needed to. I thought in particular the scene where Kendall has to make it out to Long Island and then back for the vote of no confidence, and then is waylaid by the apparent terror situation. I thought that was a great example of really edge of your seat tension in a show that, kind of made me laugh in so many other ways. Is it a perfect show? No, I think we've identified a lot of good problems here and some of the kind of plot holes and such. And I think there's room to improve. And I'm really looking forward to season 7. So I'm going to come down at a 7, even down from a 7.5. How about you, Aaron?
So my pre-recording score is a 3. The first 4 episodes of the show, I was very disgruntled with everyone. I did not like Kendall. I did not like Roman, especially the whole sequence, like Tony pointed out, with the poor kid and the baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I was viscerally mad at Roman as a character. Connor was just meh. Tom felt very cruel. Sabone felt greedy. It was a group of people I didn't care for. And so it took a little while for me to care enough to actually want anything to happen. And by that point, I felt like Kendall just had dropped the ball. Greg had shown himself to be just an unrealistic character. And the show for me just didn't come together. I kept saying this to myself, and I was like, I wonder if Jay tainted me in saying that the guy who wrote or helped create Peep Show wrote this, because it felt like someone who created a sitcom trying to do Sopranos, and I struggle to find them landing it. And now what I will say is that, having talked with you guys, I actually did laugh more than I realized at certain things that we brought up, like things with Tom and the song Bird and the dinner. That actually was very funny. And then also with Greg and Double having dinner with Grandpa, were they eating worms in that dinner, the weird Asian restaurant with Grandpa? like I couldn't tell exactly what they were eating because it just looked foul.
I just assumed it was noodles.
I thought it was some sort of noodles. Yeah, looked like some type of Asian food restaurant.
Yeah, it didn't look appealing, and Greg didn't look appealed by it. So that was funny. There were some situational comedies aspects that I did chuckle at. So I would actually raise my score to probably 4, based off the discussion. So it went up for me. I would say the second season would have to deliver a mighty blow, and they would have to give me something to really like Kendall to want to keep watching. Because walking away, especially with that ending, I just don't like Kendall. And I don't like anyone else in the family really that much either. So 3 oodalong birds before, and 4 fried chiclets after.
All right. So we've got, to sum up, we've got a 6 from Tony, a 7 from me, a 4 from Aaron. That gives us an average score of 5.6 repeating. And if you'll give me one moment, I can tell you where that stacks up against our other shows. Something tells me it's going to be right around the middle, probably bottom half. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves.
I will say that me and Christy were talking about shows that I didn't care for, and I don't know, cruelty seems to be a common thing I don't care for. It's making fun of someone or being mean, not so bad, but whenever it's really cruel, because I felt like his Dark Materials had a lot of cruelty in it, right? This felt like it had a lot of cruelty in it. Those shows don't seem to resonate with me, I think is a big thing also.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll just say, similar to that, I feel like I struggle with cringe. Even a show that I've watched before, if I know something upcoming is going to be super cringy, hard to watch, I'll just kind of stop I'll take a few days break. I'm I don't want to watch this right now. episode.
I definitely paused this show. Like, there's one episode where I had to have paused it like 30 times, like just to try and get through the cringe. Like, I just was like, no, stop. Okay, let's go. No.
Did anybody else watch this show with subtitles on?
I felt like I should have a few times, but I did not.
Because there were a couple of moments early on where, gosh, I actually took a picture of the TV screen. Here it is. That the closed captioning, sometimes it'll tell you the sound of what's going on in brackets. There were a couple times that in brackets it said humorless chuckle when either Kendall or Shiv were laughing. And that was just spot on for their characters. But as for where the show stacks up, I think cruel and cringe are two great words to use, because I was seeing this as around the midpoint. It's actually 7th from the bottom, putting it solidly in the bottom 25%.
What's in front of it? What's below it?
It is immediately above season 1 of Warrior Nun and below Mixology and season 1 of The Orville.
Wow, really? Orville's that low? Oh God, I love the Orville.
That was our pilot episode, and we've come a long way since then.
We have come a long way. Well, then with that, dun, 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 do we want to spin the wheel of randomoniousness?
Yes, please.
All right. So, as previously undisclosed rules that we had discussed off the screen, since Jay had 2 showings back to back, we have ended his reign before a turkey, I guess. And
I've recused myself.
Yeah, he's recused himself, and just me and Tony are going to be on the wheel. I have put up a 2013 Canadian sitcom, which is the epitome of a palate cleansing shitcom, in my opinion. Not looking for high scores here, but maybe for a good time. And then Tony, a little blurb on Mosquito Coast.
Yeah, it's a repeat of last time. I guess I wasn't ready to give up on it, especially with such high odds. But I watched the pilot episode. It seems to be there's a family where either the father or the mother or both have some sort of history with the law, and they're kind of on the run. And then also in the pilot episode, they are getting basically found and they're picking up to move on. So I'm guessing the theme of the show is going to be them escaping to a destination, or maybe being on the run the whole time, and kind of like how their family survives or doesn't survive is my guess, but I've not read a synopsis.
If this is like a really elaborate Beverly Hillbillies, I'm done.
Okay.
I am really looking forward to both of these shows, so spin that wheel.
All right, here we go. If everyone can see, correct?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Wait, because that seems like a thing that we should do. Shuffle, 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 spin.
Oh, it slowed way down.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Mosquito Coast.
Boys,
Right.
confession time. I've watched the first 2 episodes of Mosquito Coast, and I'm very excited that we're going to do it because it's bad. It's real bad.
Is it bad?
Oh, yes. Okay, good. Thank you.
The first episode wasn't that bad, but is the second episode worse?
Like I tried to watch the third and just gave up and was like, life is too short.
All right, fantastic.
Oh no, this will be a trio of not well received shows. Maybe
We'll see. Maybe it redeems itself in the final 8, but we'll see. Yeah, so
We'll see if it redeems itself or if it's going to get swatted down.
Love the puns, baby.
All right. Well, that was the show for Succession. Join us next time for Mosquito Coast. For me, I am Jay. You can find me at Jay Suespante. Boys, say goodbye.
Aaron here at Tenacious Aaron. Salutations, Internet.
This is Tony at T Pinquite, and I'll see you later.
All right. See you later, America and the world.